Have you ever stopped to think about how one place can be home to one of the world's oldest civilizations, the birthplace of four major religions, and a modern tech superpower all at the same time? Well, today we are going to try and unravel that incredible story. We're going to go on a rapid-fire journey through 5,000 years of Indian history. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. 5,000 years in just a few minutes? It sounds absolutely impossible, right? But buckle up because we're about to hit the absolute highlights, the critical turning points, and the defining moments of this huge, incredibly complex story. Okay, so where do we even begin? Our story starts at the very dawn of civilization, in a land of fertile river valleys that would give rise to one of the world's most amazing ancient cultures. I want you to just picture this for a second. We're talking more than 4,000 years ago. And there are bustling cities with multi-storied brick houses, streets laid out on a grid, and even advanced sanitation systems. This was no primitive settlement, folks. It was a Bronze Age marvel that was right up there with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. And get this, they had a written language that we still haven't been able to crack today. And look, this isn't just some theory. As this map shows you, this was a massive civilization. These are the real-world spots that give us a direct window into their world, stretching all across what is now Pakistan and northwest India. So, after those great cities declined, a whole new chapter began. And this one was defined not by brick and mortar, but by powerful ideas. This was the Vedic age, and it gave us the Vedas, this incredible collection of hymns and philosophies that laid the very foundation for Hinduism. Core concepts like dharma, karma, and reincarnation, ideas that continue to shape Indian culture to this day, all have their roots right here. All right, so from those philosophical foundations, we're now going to pivot to an era of political unification, a time when all these scattered kingdoms started giving way to the first great Indian empire. And then, in 322 BCE, this young, incredibly ambitious leader named Chandragupta Maurya just bursts onto the scene. He systematically defeats his rivals and builds the Mauryan Empire, the very first power to bring a huge chunk of the subcontinent under a single ruler. But the most famous Mauryan, the one everyone's heard of, is Chandragupta's grandson, Ashoka. At first, he was this ruthless conqueror, but he had this profound change of heart after witnessing the absolute horror and slaughter of the Kalinga War. I mean, this was one of history's most dramatic personal turnarounds, and it had a massive impact, not just on India, but on the whole world, because Ashoka's support helped spread Buddhism all across Asia. Now, what's so fascinating is how he spread his new philosophy. Ashoka had his principles, his Dhamma, literally carved into stone pillars all across his empire for everyone to see. And as you can see from these examples, it wasn't just abstract stuff. He was talking about practical things like medical care for people and animals, religious tolerance, and most famously, his own deep regret over the war. Okay, we're going to fast forward now through several centuries of amazing regional kingdoms and incredible golden ages, like the Guptas and the Cholas, and we arrive at another period of imperial grandeur, medieval India, and the rise of the mighty Mughal Empire. And what a dynasty it was. You've got Babur, the brilliant military strategist who started it all. Then there's Akbar the Great, known for his wisdom and religious tolerance. Of course, Shah Jahan, the master builder who gave us the Taj Mahal. And finally, the complex and controversial Aurangzeb, who expanded the empire to its absolute peak but also planted the seeds of its downfall. This slide really nails the contrast within the dynasty. On one hand, you have Akbar, who would hold debates with scholars from all different faiths. And then, on the other hand, you have his own great-grandson, Aurangzeb, who reversed a lot of those tolerant policies and brought back the jizya, a tax on non-Muslims. It's a fascinating contrast, and it's something that's still debated in India today. So, as the Mughal Empire weakened, it created a power vacuum. And a new force, arriving not over land, but by sea, was more than ready to fill it. This is where the story takes a huge turn, marking the beginning of the European chapter in India's history, a chapter of trade, conflict, and colonization. It all started with the lure of spices, textiles, and other incredible riches. European powers, the Portuguese, the English, the Dutch, the French, all set up trading posts. But what began as a race for profits soon turned into a ruthless struggle for political and military control. Over time, through a mix of clever politics and brute force, the British East India Company basically outplayed everyone and became the ruler of huge parts of India. But its policies were exploitative, and resentment was building, and all that simmering anger was about to hit its boiling point in one single explosive year. In 1857, a massive rebellion just erupted across northern India. As you can see here, with the major centers of revolt and their leaders, it was a widespread and incredibly bloody conflict. And even though it was eventually crushed, this was a watershed moment. It was the end of company rule and the beginning of the British Raj, with the British Crown taking direct control of India. But if the British thought direct rule would quiet things down, they were dead wrong. It only fueled the desire for self-rule even more. The memory of 1857 sparked a growing nationalist movement, and now we're moving into the final act, the long, difficult, but ultimately successful struggle for India's freedom. And then a completely different kind of leader stepped onto the world stage. Someone who would change history not with a sword, but with an idea. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. He turned the freedom struggle into a true mass movement, getting millions of people involved through his revolutionary idea of nonviolent resistance. From non-cooperation to the famous Salt March and that final defiant call to quit India, he shook the foundations of an empire. And finally, at the stroke of midnight on August 15, 1947, after centuries of foreign rule and decades of relentless struggle, it happened. India achieved its independence. A brand new chapter in its long history was about to begin. So after that whirlwind tour, from the ancient Indus Valley all the way to the modern-day republic, what's the big takeaway? To me, it's a story of unbelievable resilience, of constant change, of a civilization that has absorbed so many influences but has always kept its own unique soul. And it's a story that's still being written. So I'll leave you with this. What do you think is the most important lesson we can learn from India's epic journey?